You, never again will life be cut off from the waters of the flood, never again will there be a flood to destroy the earth. I now establish my covenant with you and with your descendants after you, and with every living creature that was with you, the birds, the livestock, and all the wild animals, all that came out of the ark with you, every living creature on earth. Everything that lives and moves will be food for you, just as I gave you green plants and I give you everything. I will demand an accounting from every animal, and from every each man too. I will demand an accounting for the life of his fellow man. This is the sign of the covenant I am making between me and you and every living creature with you, a covenant of all generations to come. I have set my rainbow in the clouds, and it will be a sign of the covenant between me and the earth. So those of you who have a faith tradition or are familiar with faith tradition will recognize that as being the, what is it? Noah story, right? The end of the I hope you guys knew that. Otherwise, back to Sunday school with you all. And I want to note, and I always say this: who is this covenant with? So the covenant is with Noah, and the covenant is with Noah's descendants, and the covenant is with every living creature on the earth. That's what it says. So what I take from that is that God is in a covenantal relationship with not only human beings, but with all of creation. And I think there's other texts that speak to that point. And the question is, are we, and then there's, in Genesis, there's a piece where we're supposed to till and tend, right? There's a stewardship responsibility that we have. So we're like the foreman. God's the landlord, and we're like the foreman, where we're supposed to take care of the creation of the patrimony that we're given. We're not supposed to use it up. We're supposed to make sure that it maintains its value to the next generation. Just like if you owned property and you hired somebody to run it, you wouldn't want them to trash it. You would want them to take from it, but also to make sure that it's still produced. You know, like Don with his land, he wants to make sure that his land continues to produce for his children and his grandchildren. And I think that's where we've really changed something significant, where we just basically have set up a society that we try to take all the value that we can from everything all the time. And we don't care what happens 10 or 20 or 30 years ago, but from now. If you look at Adam Smith, talking classical economics, the market was one of a number of important forces. The market had limitations based on ethics, based on communal, based on the commons, based on all sorts of different things, based on religion and responsibility to God, which was more of a thing in those days. That whole thing has been almost wiped out, where the market is almost now an idol, where we only obey what the market says, and the only thing that has any value is what you can pay for. And I think that's immoral. No matter how you look at the situation, if you look at it just in terms of your own children, how many people here have children or grandchildren who are under the age of 27? Okay? There's never been a month in the lifetime of that person, or those people, that was less than the average temperature in the 20th century. There's never been a month that was less than the average month temperature in the 20th century. Ever. 27 years. I think it's like 352 months, something like that. Statistics. Yeah. So that's like, if you're concerned about your own children, right? What is Kansas going to be like? They live in New York. What's New York going to be like? When it's, New York's pretty hot in the summer already. Not even withstanding the flooding subways and all the rest of it, right? Look at Colorado, right? Our own neighbors. They get wildfires, they get floods, both of which are contributed to by climate change, right? They just had these terrible floods. Wichita had a lot of rain this year. Last year it's drought. This year it's floods. Next year it'll be drought. Or 2 years from now. Other species. Right? We're in the middle of what's called the sixth great die-off. where species are going extinct at the rate of something like 3 per day. A lot of them we haven't even discovered yet. Right? We go someplace and we look at some natural beauty. You know, I always find my personal practice is when I'm feeling spiritually empty, I try to find some beautiful natural place to go because I find that really connects me to God. So Clinton Lake is a big one for me. I live up by there. Those places are going to be different. Look at Colorado. You go look at the mountains, right? You go to Colorado, look at the mountains. The mountains are bare in a lot of places now. You know, I come from the back east. You know, the New Jersey shore was destroyed by Hurricane Sandy. Destroyed. The places that I grew up, right? New York subway flooded. I don't think that anybody ever even thought that could happen. And then there's other places in the world, as Dr. King said so eloquently. There was a big cyclone in India yesterday, right? Last year, Typhoon Bopha. I mean, there's just, you know, you can't even keep track of everything. You have floods in Pakistan. And those people, and I say this all the time, now I'm assuming that most of the people in the room come from some sort of Christian tradition. Even if you're not particularly religious now, that you come from some sort of Christian tradition. And I know that there's some Methodists and some Mennonites in the audience, because I know you guys. So I've said this before, you've heard me say this before if you've ever heard me speak, but Christians in particular have spent a great deal of time doing what they call mission work in the developing world, right? So education and healthcare and nothing but nets. So the very people who you've spent all this time caring for in this way are the very people who stand to lose the most from climate change. And they're the people who have the least responsibility for it. You know, we in Kansas, we in America, we are blessed. Blessed. If it gets hot, we turn up the air conditioning. No problem. People in Nigeria, people in Philippines, people in Bolivia, they can't do that. They can't do that. And we are causing their distress. We are directly causing their distress. And that is, I don't see how you can call yourself a Christian, or a Jew, Richard, and just let that go like that. I don't see it. Now, I know that there are Christians who rely primarily on, you know, in Genesis 1 where it says the world is here for us to do with what we want. But I always say the world is here for us to till and tend, you know, Genesis 2. But I want to make sure that I'm also, you know, in addition to being a rabbi, I'm also an activist. And part of my job with Interfaith Power Light is to try to figure out ways to change the paradigm. And I want you to know, you know, it's very, you know, kind of, we're all sitting here going, oh my God. You know, it's depressing. And I want to make sure that you realize that there are things that we can do. We are at the cusp of probably the greatest societal change that there's been since the Industrial Revolution. What we need to do is we need to go 80% off of fossil fuels within the next 50 years. 80. We need to move away from fossil fuels. And it seems like that would be impossible, but we're already 20% of the way there. 150 coal plants have closed in the last 5 years. Okay, 150, and there's going to be more. Half of the capacity that's come online in the United States in the last 5 years has been renewables. Half. There's a couple of structural problems that are holding some stuff back. Mostly it's transmission. A combination of efficiency, which is bringing down demand, distributed energy, which is local, which is putting solar panels on your roof, and development of regional capacity sharing will change the society radically. In 50 years, it's going to be a lot different than it is right now. And let me tell you something, it's going to be good for Kansas. Everybody's always talking about, the people who are against it talk about how much it's going to cost and how difficult it's going to be, but it's going to be better. It's going to be better, and I'll tell you why. What's the name of your town? Wheaton. Wheaton has building stock, which is inefficient building stock. Every building in Wheaton is going to need to be weatherized. That is work that has to be done in Wheaton. It can't be outsourced. It's going to take years. The capacity, the energy, the transmission, and the solar panels are going to have to be done by people who live there. And there ain't much in Wheaton aside from the farmland, I'm assuming.
That's right. 97 second cousins.
So we're talking about a work program for Don's second cousins. So all of that work in every town in Kansas, and every town in Missouri, and every town in Colorado will have to be done by people who live there. That's one. Second of all, if you think about it, and everybody talks about how expensive it is, think about how expensive it is not to. Right? Think about how much FEMA costs. Think about how much it costs to send help to New Jersey, or to New York, or to Boulder, Colorado. They don't include that in the cost. When they talk about cheap energy, they don't talk about that. They don't talk about sending the fleet to the Persian Gulf. Chris knows more about this than I do. They don't talk about escorting tankers through the Persian Gulf. They don't talk about that. That's part of the cost of fossil fuels. And that doesn't happen with wind and solar and biomass and geothermal. All right? With those, once you make the capital investment, the power is free. Once you make the capital investment, all the costs are on the building side. Once you make the capital investment, the rest of the power is free, essentially. With coal, how many times has your Westar bill gone up in the last 5 years? Every single year, every 6 months, they raised the rate. And they did it again just now. Is that inexpensive energy? How much inexpensive energy is it going to be another 5 years from now? Now that's going to be, when it gets to be a certain amount, it's really going to make a difference for people doing solar on their houses, right? And moving away from the utilities and the big centralized power development. And I want you to think about what this could look like 50 years from now. Less asthma, less cancer, food that's healthy, local knowledge, as opposed to going to Target every 5 seconds for cheap crap from China. Excuse me, did I say crap? A climate that works in predictable ways. An economy based on local knowledge and skills. A world where healthy food is available, but as available as a fast food hamburger. A world where you don't have to get in your car every time you want to go somewhere. A world with less smog. A world where our comforts are not at somebody else's expense. A world of justice and of peace between ourselves and between us and the creation. And that's the kingdom of God on earth, if you ask me. So, this will happen even if, I think it'll happen even in our current political system, because I think that what's going to end up happening is we're going to stop waiting for Congress to do something, and it's just going to happen on its own. The same way that the cell phone industry killed the landlines. It didn't do it because Congress told them it was okay. Right now, there's a lot of things that are protecting the old paradigm. It's much easier to run a pipeline than it is to run transmission for renewables. It's just easier if you know how the process works. I mean, you can basically put a pipeline in anywhere you want to. But transmission, every farmer has to say, okay. There's a lot of people, there's a lot of advantages to the old paradigm baked into the tax code. They get a lot of subsidies, they get a lot of support, a lot of it's hidden. And as we said, even the fleet that is in the Persian Gulf is a subsidy in a way. But at some point, and it's not going to be too long now, technology and initiative and innovation is going to really overcome a lot of this. And what we need to do is to keep saying, this is what we want. Say to our friends and our neighbors and our elected officials, this is what we want. This is what we want. We want a world that continues to work in predictable ways. And if we ask for it, and if we demand it, and if we stand up for it, and if we fight for it, then we'll get it.